Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale, and on this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I am so excited to share with you my recipe for my English muffins. Now, if you follow me on my vlog channel, then you'll know that I made these, and a lot of you wanted to get the recipe, and they're really easy to make. They're delicious, and what you must remember is that with any baked goods, when you are making them at home, when you're not making, if they're not coming out of a factory, they're gonna have a slight different texture and slightly different flavor, but they really do taste pretty much the same. But I'm telling you, homemade is always better. Now, the ingredients are actually pretty simple. You'll need some bread flour, sugar, baking soda, salt. You'll need some whole milk that's been warm. You'll need some melted butter and vegetable shortening, unsalted butter, an egg, some yeast, and a little bit more sugar. Now, the first thing we're going to work on is activating our yeast. Now, what I did is I took my milk and I popped it into the microwave for about a minute or so, or until it's really, really nice and hot. You don't want it to be too hot, like boiling point, because then it'll burn, kill your yeast, but you don't want it to be too cold either. So to that, I'm going to add in my sugar and my yeast. I add a little bit of water in the container because now it's stuck, but that's okay. And I'm just going to leave that there for a few minutes to activate while we go on and work on our dry ingredients. Now, I've clearly already measured everything out, and I am using bread flour for this. You could certainly use all-purpose flour. I just feel like you get a much lighter and better textured English muffin with bread flour. So now I'm going to do is just take all my dry ingredients and just give them a little zhuzh. And those are done. Now what I've done here is I've taken just a little bit of unsalted butter and a little bit of vegetable shortening. You could certainly use all butter if you wanted to. I just think the vegetable shortening gives it a lighter texture. And I just melted these together and that's it. And they're done. Now I'm going to make this in my standing mixer. I'm going to pour all my dry ingredients in here. I should say dump them in there. And then I'll just take this fork. A little bit of flour stuck there. And then I'm just going to use the same bowl. Why get anything else dirty? I'm just going to oil it a little bit and get this ready because this is going to be the bowl we use to let our dough rise. Just do that. And now I'm just going to wait for my yeast to activate. They'll just take about 3 to 4 minutes and then we'll move on to the next step. My yeast smells good and I could see it started to do good things. So now to that, I'm adding my vegetable shortening and my butter that I melted and my egg. And I'm just giving this a brisk little whisk here. Oops, and make a mess at the same time, why don't you? Pour that glorious mixture that is going to do fabulous things for our English muffins into our dry ingredients. Put on your dough hook. Ready for a takeoff here. Let this go for about 3 to 4 minutes or until it's really nice and smooth. That looks really good. As you can see, the dough is really sticky, but that's the way it's going to be for now. Now get your oiled bowl ready, and then I just take a dough scraper, a plastic little dough scraper, and just get everything out and plunk it right in my oiled bowl. Try to get as much out of there as you can. Certainly don't make yourself crazy, but I am going to scrape it off the spatula. All right, and then what I do is I just take my little brush here that I put my vegetable oil in the bowl with and just go on the top. All right, clearly you're going to do this with clean hands, but go ahead and wrap this up nice and tight with some plastic wrap and let this rise for about 1.5 to 2 hours or until it's super, like almost 1.5 times its size that it is now. And as always, I put mine in the microwave with the microwave turned off because that's just where the warmest spot in my kitchen is. I'm going to leave it there and I'll show you what it looks like once it has risen beautifully. As you can see, my dough has risen beautifully. Now what I have here are 2 large baking sheets that I've lined with parchment and sprinkled with some just cornmeal. Now we're just going to work on this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just lightly, not too much, but lightly flour your work surface because this is a pretty sticky dough. And then I just take my plastic little dough scraper, get that out of there, sprinkle a little bit on top. You could really smell the yeast, which is all good. want to be able to smell it. That way you'll know it's activated, but you can clearly see it's activated from how much this has risen. And now I just kind of flatten it and pull it together and just add enough flour so that it's manageable and not too sticky, but don't add too much flour so that these all they won't end up being as light as they should be. A little tiny bit more under here. All right, now what I'm gonna do, this is gonna make 16. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna divide the dough in half. Try your best to be as precise as you can with that, just because you don't wanna have some that are really big and some that are really small. And then working with one of the halves, I just kind of shape it into a little log. Cut that in half. That in half. Again, try and be as precise as you can. And then that in half. And do the same thing here. So each half gives you 8 pieces. And then what you're going to do, have some flour on hand, dip it in flour, shake off the excess, pull it together into a little ball, and then you're going to flatten them. Flatten them pretty well, and then flatten them on your baking sheet, and then just continue till you're done with all your dough. Last one, and then what you're going to do is take a bit more cornmeal and then just sprinkle it on the very top of each one. You don't have to go crazy, but you do want to make sure that you do have some on there. And now what I'm going to do is cover these with just a kitchen towel. It'll be fine. 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how hot the environment that you're in is. These should be about doubled in size, even maybe 2.5 times the size, and then I'll show you what they look like when they're done. They're that easy and simple. And I promise you, by the time we're done, these will look like English muffins. Look at those beauties. They took about an hour or so to rise. And now what I have here is a non-stick griddle with nothing on it. And what I also have done is preheated my oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Now what I'm going to do, I like to use a fish spatula because it's really nice and thin. I'm just going to pick up each one and place them on my griddle. And I'm going to let these cook for 2 minutes on each side, just until they develop a really lovely golden brown crust on both sides. And then I'm going to put them back on the same baking sheet and then continue on with the next batch. My last batch came off of my grill pan. Now they are going to go, my griddle, they're going to go into the oven that's been preheated to 325 for 10 minutes. And once they've been there for 10 minutes, I'm going to show you what they look like when they're fully cooked. These were in the oven for 10 minutes. I have my last batch in the oven right now, but I figured I have to show you this because they just came out and they smell incredible and they're warm. The crucial thing is you gotta break these open with a fork and not with a knife. If you cut them with a knife, we'll have no little pockets. But now what's gonna happen, I just poke it all around. These are really, really hot because they just literally came out of the oven. Now, what you wanna do is you wanna toast these really nicely in a toaster. Spread a little bit of butter on them, or jam, or Nutella in my case, and they are divine. Oh, they are hot, hot, hot. Oh, and when you toast them, they get all the little nooks and crannies, and you put a little bit of butter on them. They're delicious. I'm not gonna waste any time. Mm. Mm. Mm, mm, mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're hot, all right? These are fantastic. If you've ever wanted to make English muffins at home, now you can. Last weekend, I made my Eggs Benedict on homemade English muffins, and I tell you what, I've never had a better Eggs Benedict of my life. It like soaked up all that delicious hollandaise sauce so perfectly. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me. Go to laurainthekitchen.com if you want to get this recipe, along with many, many others. And if you have any requests, make sure you leave them down below. And as always, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.